Welcome, everyone. We have been meeting since March with what started as a almost spontaneous, oh my God, we're all shut in, we're alone, let's get together. And with a couple of breaks here and there, we have continued since then. And some people have been here from the beginning, some people come and go. And all are welcome. So today we will begin focusing on the soul trait of truth. But first, as is our custom, let's do a meditation to become present. So please relax in your chair and close your eyes. Take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And then again, inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. As you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them go. Like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema, and on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we're listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, friends, as the days get shorter, I hope that you remain healthy and well, that you are finding ways to connect with others and to care for yourselves. And today we are going to start on working on the soul trait of truth. So let me pull up our first slide for our initial conversation. And this is something that I covered a little bit in the email for this week. So I'd like to know, what is your truth right now? And is that something that you should doubt? Or maybe doubt isn't a good word. Is it something you should question? Is anyone feeling adventurous and sharing kind of how they're reacting to this prompt?
I just thought of something, is that when we tell our story, and I'm working on my genealogy, I realize that each time we tell a story, it's different. Therefore, our truths become different. So that's kind of just a one layer of thinking about truth, our truth.
Yeah, the stories we tell, they can vary, they can change. It reminds me, I had one friend who told this he was this was in the 80s, and he got a job as we were in college. I think he got a job as a roadie for REO Speedwagon. And he always told this story about, I'm not going to repeat the story, but I heard him tell it. We were roommates for a number of years in grad school, and the story never changed. And so I was like, I think this crazy story is actually true, because he was so like exact in the way that he told it. Because I'd heard him tell other stories that sort of changed quite a bit, and got embellished quite a bit. But this one, I think, was actually on track. What else? Who else has some thoughts? Carol.
I think we should always question everything anyway. I mean,
Mm.
I think today that this is true, but do I really think that? Or why do I think that? And I might absolutely think it's true when I walk away from it, but I think questioning your truth and questioning your stories is a good thing, because often I found, I've been politically involved, following all the politics, and you question, could these people possibly be right? Am I not seeing something here? And usually I walk away, well, in recent years anyway, with, no, they're not right. And this is why, and this is what I believe, this is my truth. But I'm stronger in it because I question it.
Mm. Thank you, Carol.
For me, when I think of truth, I like what both of you are saying, and Greg, your story too. I think what I look for is I undo the layers to find clarity to the truth. It takes a little bit of time. Experiences maybe as well, and percolating.
Experiences, I love that word, percolating. I've been thinking a little bit about sort of the stories we tell from the Torah. There's a lot of stories in there which for me have a lot of truth about like humanity, or, if I take like other, different type of literature, Shakespeare, I mean, a lot of, Romeo and Juliet, none of those things ever actually happened, but boy, there's a lot of truth in that play. And so, for me, I don't need to know what, might in the Torah might be history or might not be history, or might be true or not true, but I can still look at it as a document that has a lot of truth and a lot of guidance to help guide me towards a better life.
Well, facts and truth are not exactly the same thing. There's a lot of truth in. I once had somebody say, "Well, I never read fiction because it's not true," and I went, "Yeah, no." Somebody who loves literature, anyway. Enough said.
Joanne, you're on mute. Let me unmute you here. Oops, you jumped around. Okay, now you're still. Now you're. I think we're both trying to unmute. Okay, unmute yourself.
Wait, okay.
There you go.
Is that better?
Now you're good to go.
Okay, good, because I had to collect my thoughts anyway. No, I mean, I guess I'm finding or learning truths about myself through this pandemic process, and but also, I'm wondering about, the truth in the media, and how many people believe things that are really not true. I just heard something about people who got COVID, and then they said, I don't know why, I didn't think this was going to be so bad. And, I guess, you can't change people's minds, but I did just also read an article in which a friend of mine was quoted that modern Orthodox Jews did not vote for Trump in large numbers, even though other groups did. You know,
Well, Joanne, I like when you're on the track of kind of your own truths a little bit.
Right. Okay. So, well, my own truth, I mean, I realized like I have a kind of addictive personality, and I wasted untold hours on stupid games on my iPad and on my phone in an obsessive way. And then I finally once accidentally deleted. So then I deleted all of them, and then I brought one back, and then I deleted it again. You know, and so now I'm obsessively playing Scrabble Go, which I feel like is not so bad. At least it's with some other person out there in cyberspace, and you know, maybe it's helping my vocabulary, maybe. But the other games, such a waste of time. Anyway, okay.
Well, it's the truth that we all have our struggles, you know, and we have our things that we do, which, you know, on some level, you know, might objectively or subjectively be like, oh, it's not a good waste of time. But then, you know, that can lead to a whole series of stories we might tell about ourselves too. You know, I play more time than I'd like. I love Board Game Arena. It's got a lot of board games. I spend a lot of time playing those when I really should be doing my Hebrew homework. But you know, I really enjoy it. But there is a truth. You know, I shared a story. I got sucked into playing Candy Crush once, and I played for like my daughter's play. And we were supposed to pick up like my younger daughter's friend, and we were late picking her up, and she was just getting to know her. And I was like, I had to be honest with them. I was like, hey, I was playing this game. I just totally blew it. You know, I could have claimed that I was working. I could have, but I was, you know, as it happened, I was working on truth at the time. And I'm like, wow, I'm stuck. You know, I can sort of tell a lie and make myself look better, but I thought for these middle school kids, I owed it to them to know the truth, and that if you spend too much time on your phone, you could hurt someone. You could, you know, something bad could happen. And I deleted Candy Crush, and I've never played it again since then. But I do miss it sometimes. It was fun, but, in a very unhealthy for me way.
Yes, I grok. Yeah. I mean, I think I did delete Candy Crush finally. I'm not sure. I might still have it.
Thank you, Joanne. David, I saw you on mute. Did you want to add something?
Well, you know, I mean, one of the things about truth is if you know, I spent a year in my 20s just totally into this whole truth thing, and it really hurts a lot of people sometimes. I learned that truth isn't all it's cracked up to be all the time, and we have to, you know, really think about our words when it comes to truth.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you really want to hurt someone's feelings, probably the truth is the best way to do it sometimes. And that's not a good thing.
What part of my story, it's I had just gotten married, and I was living out in California, out in the middle of nowhere. And my in-laws came to visit us there. And I really didn't want them there. And finally, my father-in-law comes up to me and says, "We're leaving." He says, it's clear that you don't want us here. And there I was stuck in this whole truth thing. And I told him that was true, that I didn't want him there. I said, but if you leave now, I said, our relationship might be over before it even begins. So maybe we have to work through this. And they did stay, and I was more careful on my truth with him after that.
Thank you, David. Wendy, I see you've raised your hand.
Hi, yes, thank you. David, was that in Hanford, California? That's pretty much in the middle of California.
It was in Mendocino, California.
Yeah, we lived in Hanford. Okay, so Fiona, truth can be elusive and really hard to discern, um, especially when you're getting different different information from different sources, and it can be subjective. So I think, like what Carol was saying, you do need to question, and I kind of do this on a constant basis. And so I was talking to Greg earlier and telling him that I was taking a hiatus from everything, just from thinking. And just I was just going to rest in the eye of a hurricane, just not think about it. It's a while now. Now I'm thinking about it. Thanks for getting me back in that mode, Greg. But
You're welcome.
I think truth is really important because I think it gives us understanding. And then it's also we act on truth. So we may be able to, I think the question is this the truth? And maybe we've decided this is the truth, or I've decided this is the truth. And then I decide this is true about this, and so I'm going to act on it. And so then I would act on that. That's how it would be my truth. Somebody else might not see that as truth and might not act on it. But I think the question is this action that I'm just about to take based on this truth going to be something for the good? Is it going to elevate the good? Is it going to be leading to a good choice for me? And that's kind of what I look for when I'm trying to discern truth. And like Carol was saying, there are facts, and so those are a little bit easier to accept, but sometimes those facts you're not going to really act on because that's not really what you're looking for. You're looking for more of it's not a feeling thing, it's like a psychological thing. It's a truth that motivates you. So that's why I was taking a break from it. It's a little bit difficult to, but I know when I watch film, I love film, I admit it. And I will watch films and I won't read up on the film.
I could just pause you for a moment because I wanted to just highlight a beautiful, one of the beautiful point you made, if that's okay, which is the connection between sort of truth and actions, and recognizing that things that we accept to be true will often motivate us to action. And then to really, it's a beautiful demonstration of mindfulness. It's like, okay, well, my truth is leading me in this direction towards this kind of action. Is that going to bring good into the world? And that's a really wonderful step. Because just because something's true doesn't mean we need to act on it. Like, I think in the book, I also share, an example of, when my daughters were teenagers and someone would say something mean about something else. And it's like, about the other one, and they'd be yelling and crying. It's like, well, you shouldn't have said that. It's like, but it's true. It's like, well, just because it's true, it doesn't mean you need to say it, if it's going to be hurtful to somebody else. And that's, that's, I think, an important lesson for all of us to remember. So this is this point, I think, is a great segue into some of the. I'm going to skip the assumptions for today because I think that there's some really interesting points here that I think that that sort of flow from what Wendy was bringing up for us. And so it's this first one that's like emet, that's the Hebrew word for truth. And it's interesting because the Hebrew spelling is Aleph, Mem, Taf. And Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and Mem is the middle letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and Taf is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So it's this idea that the divine, sits on the throne of truth, and Emet sort of encompasses everything from the beginning to the middle to the end. Now we all have different thoughts about the divinity, and we're not sure. But what might this mean? With relation to a human perception versus a greater perception about what's true.
we never know the whole truth.
Only God knows.
Making presumptions about what God's will is extremely presumptuous.
Hmm.
You know, hear people say, well, it's God's will, it's God's plan. Well, who are you to say what God knows?
Hmm. Alan Cadell, I saw a little message that you had raised your hand.
Okay. Whoops. Is the sound working is the question.
It is.
Wow. Whoopie-doo. I was doing something else with the computer last, and I thought it could have stolen my microphone. First of all, to me, the truth isn't solid like fact. Facts you can have stand for a long time. They withstand the test of weather, rain, lightning, what have you. So they stand on their own. Whereas truth is something that's kind of accepted by a group of people, probably but it starts out at a person. A person has a truth, and then they share it with others, and the truth kind of develops. I think of truths growing and maturing kind of like wine, that give them time enough and attention enough, truths become solidified and become self-consistent and reasonable. But uh, taken over a short period of time, it's certainly easy enough for my assumption of truth to be disproven by others. So that's why it takes time to mellow a truth. And truths are kind of the building blocks of life that you take these things, and these are the things that you build your day on. And so it's kind of how you run things yourself. That's enough. I've talked enough.
Thank you, Alan. And you're reminding me of I talked about how Emet has Aleph, Mem, and Taf. They're spread out throughout the alphabet. It's also, people say it's because truth is a solid foundation, whereas the Hebrew word for falsehood is sheker, which is, shin kuf resh, which are three letters that all sit next to each other, and so they don't have a very solid foundation. So it's that falsehood has no legs. Harry.
Yes, I have this app that I can put a word in, and they would give me a quote, a famous quote.
Yes.
So I put in truths, and two famous quotes came out. And one says, this is by Friedrich Nietzsche, "There are no facts, only interpretations." And the other one that's in line with that is Maya Angelou, "There's a world of difference between truth and facts. Facts can still obscure the truth." So I'll just leave you with those two thoughts.
What was the last part of that quote?
Yeah. Facts can obscure the truth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's
that's interesting. There's what is it? There's lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yeah.
Joan?
Hello. I would say truth is very subjective. And so that's when you say that the facts versus the truth. And I can say that winter here in New England is wonderful, which I would never say because I think it's terrible. But somebody that skis and and enjoys cold weather, that's their truth. And for me, it's very true that that's how I feel. Their truth is something totally different. So I think that it's very difficult to make a blanket statement. about something being the truth. And when you're telling the truth, and we grow up being told, tell the truth. You always have to tell the truth because you'll feel better if you tell the truth. And as my father would say, 10 out of 9 times, when you tell the truth, the person that you're telling the truth to, it doesn't make them feel better. You know, it relieves me, but it doesn't necessarily relieve them. So both of those things I look at with truth and question, wonder, and feel comfortable with it just being subjective. I don't have to measure anybody else's truth.
That's a wonderful segue, Joan, for another point on the same slide. But I think what you're bringing up is a very relational aspect of truth. You know, what is like, there's what I see the world as, you know, winter is terrible in New England. I used to live in Boston. I would personally agree with you. But my ski friends loved it. And it's like, gee, I wish I could move up to New Hampshire where it's even colder, you know, because then I can, you know, and even snowier, because then I can ski more. And it's like, great, you go do that. And I want to move. I moved to California, you know, that was my answer. But, you know, the question is, well, what happens to the relationship when we have like these different perceptions? Do I think my friend who wants to move to New Hampshire is an idiot? You know, do I think he's a jerk? You know, and that's sort of there's not a lot of consequence to that. But sometimes, you know, we have disagreements with people, you know, spouses, friends, siblings, where, you know, you really were mean to me when we were growing up. No, you were mean to me when we were growing up. And, you know, the reality is they were probably mean to each other. But it is, so let's look at this third bullet. May I have a volunteer to read this third bullet? Maybe the second and third bullets.
All right. Humans have limited perceptions and faulty memory, meaning that each of us can have our own version of the truth. Truth is learning to see the truth from another's perspective, as it says, execute the judgment of truth. Zechariah 8:16.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Joanne. So executing the judgment of truth, let's talk about that. What might that mean when we're talking about being in relationship to someone, whether someone we're close to or someone we're connected? Frank.
Yeah, this reminds me, and people, it's been alluded to, is I remember reading some years ago that the rabbis would teach that we shouldn't tell people things that they were not ready for.
Mm.
And then I realized that I was such a klutz with so many folks. And, you know, and I think that was really important for me to kind of hold back. It's okay to hold back my truths or the way I see the world. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And so, yes.
Thank you.
I think it's the proverbial the wife asking the husband, does this outfit make me look fat, and he better not answer on that one, you know. Hold back that truth because it could be his funeral shortly, you know. But I was thinking about everything that you were saying about the truth, and I know my brother and I have these conversations frequently because we both have different memories of the exact same event, whether it was something that our parents told us or where we were and what had happened. So, you know, whose truth is the truth? You know, I remember my mother telling me that this is how she and my dad met, and my brother has it at a completely different venue. So, and, you know, miles and miles apart. Same concept, but it was different places. But so at least we agree on one thing.
Well, they did meet.
The truth.
Definitely.
I mean, would it be fair to say they're both true?
Yes, I mean, it had to do with how our parents met, and they met at an ice skating rink. I say it was, what's the pond in Central Park? Walden Park, Walden
Olney?
Pond, with the ice skating rink, or where, well, it's a lake that turns in during the winter.
Yeah.
And my brother insists it happened in Brooklyn. And I said, I don't remember. And anybody who has a memory of Brooklyn, I was only born there and left immediately.
I've skated in both.
So where is the ice skating rink in Brooklyn?
It's in Prospect Park.
Park Slope?
Yeah. Parks.
And
Prospect Park.
has it always been there for a very, very long time? Because I'm talking way back in the late
Yeah.
30s.
I
Yeah.
believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea, never
Something to
having.
litigate between you and your brother of the geography of skating, but it's you know, there's sort of some fun trivia, but like from a relational, you know, again, that's a, you know, if you have a good otherwise relationship, that probably doesn't turn into like
World War III.
World
Yeah.
War III, but there are some things that can turn into World War III.
True. We try really hard at our relationship. And as I do in my marriage, we're married 53 years, and there are things you argue about, and, or as they say, pick your right battles, and you go from there, you know.
Right.
So.
One of the things I learned as a teacher, actually I learned it before I was a teacher, is you tell children as much as they want to know. You don't keep going on and on. And it reminds me of a story that my mother told. My brother was 5, and he said, "Mommy, did Daddy help you have me?" And she said, "Yeah." And then she says, "Well, what do you mean?" And she's thinking, "Oh my God, this kid's 5. Do I have to have the talk with him already?" And he said, "Well, did he drive you to the hospital?" And she said, "Yes, honey, he did." That's all he wanted to know.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, Carol, that's the same one where, you know, Mommy, where did I come from? And what do I want to? No, Johnny comes from Brooklyn. Where did I come from?
Yeah,
Kind of a deal.
exactly. I mean, it's like telling just enough truth that the kid wants to know,
But that means we have to be smart enough to know what is just enough.
or to ask.
True.
In my mother's case, she asked. She said, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Say more.
Down.
As a hospice nurse, I speak the truth, or I did until I retired. I'm told by a lot of families, don't tell them the truth. They'll be too upset. And, you know, and then I have the patient who wants to know the truth. And so many times I will do that and ask them, what do they want to know? Or what do they think? But you have to be prepared to tell the truth.
Janet, did you have your hand up as well? And thank you, Joan. That's a wonderful example of the trade-off between truth and kindness. Janet, I'm not hearing you, but I'm seeing your lips move. Okay. Let me see.
Janet, you're on mute.
She's waving us. So.
Type it in the chat, Janet.
I wanted to come back to the spectrum of truth because I think this really relates to what Joan was just talking about, and what Carol was talking about as well. That there is, and I think it infuses a lot of our discussion today. It's this idea of the spectrum of truth. You know, all of these different soul traits are on a spectrum, and if we get too far out of balance to one direction or the other, or to both, you know, we can get into trouble, especially relationally or with our self-esteem. And so, you know, someone earlier made reference to truth being kind of a pillar of the world. And I think that's true, because if someone is untruthful, or if we get into too many untruths or too many falsehoods, we lose trust. You know, we lose trust in society and each other. and that's eroded. And if we get into too much truth, as David was talking about, it can be, and I really fell into this as well. I could relate to exactly what David was talking about with being too truthful. And man, I was like the blunt East Coast guy with the Californians who are always polite, and it used to drive me crazy. But it's like, there's a way to say things that won't be hurtful, or maybe don't need to be said. Other thoughts about the spectrum, or where you've maybe run into challenges in the past or in the present? Janos.
I think we all have a limitation what we can take, so if in my line of work, I have to be very careful what kind of truth I can open, because psychotherapy say it's very, when you say something, people take it hard, so kind of often we need to balance, find the right, what would be helpful for that particular person. So I often take the Einstein thing about it's very relative, what's truth. And ask people, what are you going to do with the truth? That matters often.
What are you going to do with the truth? That is a very, very good question. Yeah. If I weren't facilitating this group, I would just sit and think about that for a while, because that's a very interesting question. Janet.
One of the things I want, can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
But one of the things I wanted to say earlier is, what about the Bible? You can look at the same passage and a person of a different faith sees it completely differently. Like, for example, many Christians look at what they call Second Isaiah, and they say that shows that Jesus is going to be the new whatever. We look at it. I once said to someone, hey, have you read that passage in Hebrew?
Ah.
But there is no argument, and there is no truth or falsity. It's an interpretation.
Yeah, that's a great point, Janet. And of course, we don't need to look in another faith. I mean, the Talmud is, 22 volumes of rabbis arguing about the same passage of Torah, over, not exactly the same one through all 22 volumes, but it's like, well, I look at it this way. No, I look at it that way. And it's...
And who said women aren't allowed to sing in choirs with men? Who said that? Where'd that come from? The Talmud? Maybe? Tradition?
Some man.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, these things get said, they get accepted as truth, they get passed down, and half the time people don't discern, well, it's someone I trusted, or maybe I didn't even think about it, I just heard it somewhere, and so that's just the way it must be, or that's the way it's always been done. And as Wendy was saying earlier, it's like when we blindly accept these things, they just lead us to actions, and they can lead us down a path which might not be bringing good into the world the way that we'd like to. Okay, well, I found something really juicy that I thought was really interesting. When I was reading I'm probably not sharing though, so I'm going to get all excited about this, and no one else will be able to participate unless I share. Okay, here we go. Volunteer to read. Maybe I've heard from almost everybody, but if anyone hasn't talked yet today and would like to read for us, Jack, yeah.
Okay. Starting from Isaac? Yeah. Isaac endures tremendous struggle in his life, but rarely speaks of it, choosing the quiet path to healing. Imagine facing a trying situation in your life and speaking truthfully about it. How might the Genesis story be different if Isaac, Abraham, Sarah, or Hagar had spoken out? That's a good question.
Just for people who knows, what many of us may know these stories, but Isaac was Abraham's son. What were some of the struggles that he went through in his life?
Well, his father almost sacrificed him on the mountaintop. One thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll traumatize you. I'm lying there and I
For
see
life.
Dad holding a knife up over my head and a pile of sticks. That'll
And
put
speak
you in therapy for a lifetime.
and talking about the truth, he was lied to. He says, "Oh, and a lot of innuendos. Oh, the Lord will provide." Finally at the end, if you look
He
at the
knew,
story,
I think.
innuendo, and finally gets up to the mountain. He says, "Okay, it's you." What?
Yeah. Sarah never spoke to Abraham again after that.
Oh, she
I think
died.
he died.
He died, yeah, died of broken heart. There's no record of Isaac and Abraham ever speaking after that. And so in this week's Parsha, he's kind of out walking. It's a Hebrew word. They don't know what it means. A lot of people think it might mean meditating, walking,
Right.
planting out in the field.
Contemplating.
But that's kind of where this idea of this sort of quiet path to healing. So how might things have been different if people had talked a little bit more?
Was Sarah very obvious to Hagar about how disappointed she was with the way she ridiculed Sarah for not being able to conceive in the Torah portion?
I don't believe so. I don't think she ever.
So she kept silent pretty much, but she just spoke to Abraham about this is what Hagar keeps saying.
But she was very mean to Hagar. She might have beaten her. Hagar ran away before I think before the child was even born. I'm trying to remember. I think so. Yeah. Yeah. When she was pregnant. Yeah. And then they said, go back to your mistress, Sarah's handmaid. And she did.
Yeah, it was a very toxic situation that developed. And
then Abraham had to throw her and the boy out at a certain point.
Yeah.
Don't you think that God bears some responsibility for that mess that was there?
Possibly. I think what this, I think the reason why we study this, of course, is to try to then turn it back around to our own lives and our own decisions about what we talk about and what we don't talk about. And this is sort of the lead in to our breakout groups. As I set up I'm not sharing again. I'm going to share our next screen, and our prompt may have, while I set up the breakout rooms, may have a volunteer to kind of read this excerpt from Marilyn Saltzman's book, please.
I'll do it. Rather than saying, I told you a million times I don't like hot dogs, I would say, I had a bad experience with hot dogs as a kid, and I still don't eat them. It was a small distinction, perhaps, but one that led me down the path of truth-telling rather than down the slippery slope towards lying, says Marilyn Saltzman. Do you want me to continue?
No, I think that's great. Because we've looked at truth from a lot of different perspectives, and she picked practice, to say, okay, I'm going to try to say one area where I'm sort of exaggerating. There's one reading, and I think I list these in the book, and I don't usually share them in these meetings. There's 9 different types of liars, and one type of lying is just exaggerating. And she said, if I keep going down this exaggerating road, I'm going to be more likely to tell other lies. So when you get together with your partner, where do you find yourself challenged by truth? Again, this is a confidential, there's no recording, it's just confidential between the two of you. Are you challenged to see another's perspective? Or maybe you embellish stories, or maybe you'll tell lies to make yourself look better, or maybe you're too harsh on yourself. And then, of course, you know, when we're together, it's also an opportunity to just kind of update and talk about where you are in the world right now. Okay, so I've just opened all of the rooms. You should see a button on your screen. You'll have probably 5 or 6 minutes. Wendy, have you joined your room? Okay, everybody is gone. Well, if I'm first going to pause the recording, I shall resume the recording so people can see the magical moment when everyone reappears.
Okay.
All right, here we are. So I don't forget, I want to share the name of the book again in the chat by Marilyn Saltzman. Your Love is Blasting in My Heart, A Grandmother's Journey. And it's really a wonderful, wonderful little book. I think there's the Amazon link. I'm actually trying to set up a bookstore, like a little Mussar storefront on bookshop.org. So for those who don't want to order from Amazon. But I digress. How was the breakout? Would anyone care to share, something about, without divulging a truth from your partner, but anyone want to sort of share anything that came up that you found interesting and insightful, and maybe a practice that you might adopt based on the discussion? Frank, I can't tell if you're itching your eye.
Joanne, you're on mute.
We came up with, it's not going to make things better, then there's no point in divulging a truth that might actually hurt.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joanne.
You're welcome.
Yes, one of the things that we discussed was how telling the truth, telling my truth, can sometimes just be an excuse to be cruel and to hurt and to elevate oneself by diminishing the other person. Now, that's never a good idea.
Thank you, Carol. Gail, I haven't heard from you today. Anything you'd like to add to the discussion?
It's so interesting to think of truth as being in the middle of the spectrum. You know, as you said, when we're being brought up, we're being told, tell the truth at all costs, and, you know, that you'll never get really punished if you at least tell me the truth and all those things. And to think that there are so many values that actually are stronger than the truth, like the Shalom Bait someone had posted in the chat about God telling a lie to Abraham so he didn't offend him. You know, Sarah thinks that you can't fulfill your marital obligations anymore. God held that back. And it's just a real revelation to think about the truth that way, that it's actually the middle of this spectrum that we're always trying to balance on, and you don't want to go all out for truth no matter what.
Yeah, it was such a shock to me when I first learned that. It was, and it was painful too, because I had been really like I'm just going to tell it like it is, and if you can't take it, that's your problem. And no, actually, it was my problem. You know, and, that was my problem, and but we can change. You know, we can. That's one of the wonderfully optimistic things about Mussar, is that we can grow and we can change wherever we've been a decade ago or a day ago or an hour ago. We can always do better, and we can always learn and grow.
Well, one of the things that that I brought up when we spoke about our group is that I've had a situation in my life situations in my life where I diminished myself, where if I felt that I was in the minority or and I was experiencing things in a certain way, I would find myself deferring to the predominant experience. And one of the things that where I'm growing is being able to express the way I see things and say with conviction, and not to force my way onto things, force my will onto things, but just pretty much put my my view out. And very often, when I do that, people say, the reaction isn't like, who do you think you are, but more or less, you know what, that's another point. That's part of the whole package.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah. There's been a lot of sociology studies about like when people feel comfortable sharing their truth. Like my wife is still in the corporate world, and she's did a lot of work and worked with a lot of researchers about why are women, why is there a glass ceiling? And sometimes research has shown that it takes 3 women to be in the room, or 3 women to be able to really make a difference. And whether there's a lot of ways that we could imagine the truth could be a part of that, feeling comfortable about stepping forward, having some safety in numbers, or just people sort of noticing that there's other men noticing that there's other points of view. Yeah, that sort of, Jack, your observation kind of sparked that for me. And I think they can also lead us to action too. Where do I need some allies with me? Where do I need to invite some other people along so they can help me put my truth forward, or we can put our truth forward together, in a group that maybe isn't as ready to hear it, or won't hear it unless there's more than just me saying it. Yeah, Frank.
Yeah, I just was thinking that often in conversation, and I'm going to talk about my conversation, but I've been catching myself when I state things as fact rather than my opinion. And I've been trying to catch myself, because the idea is that if I want to learn from others, which I do, then you have to converse in a way that helps that move along. And if I see that this is the way this is the way I see it, rather than, and so our language is what's the word? It's not very finesse. It's not very fine, our language, and therefore our thoughts are kind of suffer also.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. We're just about out of time, but Alan, I'm going to give you the last word for a quick comment, and then we'll do our closing meditation.
Okay, my comment is that everybody has dreams, and if you are a truth teller and you walk along the road and you tell each of the people how their dreams doesn't work, and you leave a trail of broken hearts behind you, that surely isn't a good use of the truth. So you have to question why you would ever do something like that.
Thank you, Alan. And I think let's use that as kind of that sort of inspired me a little bit to lead this closing meditation. So let's all close our eyes, taking a deep breath through the nose. And leisurely exhale through the mouth. Let's visualize ourselves walking through the world or walking down the road, using our truth to build people up. Let's remember to question those stories inside where we're maybe tearing ourselves down, where we have a dream and we tell ourselves, oh, we can't do that. That'll never happen. Maybe some of those truths we need to question. We need to walk on that path of building ourselves up. Not flattering people, not buttering people, but just using our truth to build them up. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, one of my truths is I'm so very grateful to be with all of you every week. And for some of you, or maybe this is your first time or your first time in a while, I do hope this has been meaningful to you. And I hope that you will come back again next week as our community is growing and growing closer to one another. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That's great.
All right,
Thanks,
have a
Greg.
good evening. All right, bye.
Bye-bye.